You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Radio Show, only on Financial News and Talk. And live in studio, your host, local and national real estate expert and consumer advocate, Ron Siegel.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit from current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We have a very focused show. We only chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. But before we get into our intriguing content today, please join me in welcoming our featured guests. Attorney Stephen Colletti is with us this morning. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Ron. Happy to be here. How are you?
Glad to have you with us. And let me remind you, if you ever have any home or finance-related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan, a plan to save you money, I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And of course, it's Ron Siegel Radio, so we are celebrating today. Let's see what we've got on our schedule for celebrations. Of course, we're going to get to that one in just a minute. National Roller Coaster Day. Well, being that I don't like heights, roller coasters are not my cup of tea. There are some wonderful roller coasters around here in Southern California. National Airborne Day. You know, I appreciate our men and women of our military. The others that want to jump out of airplanes, is there something wrong with the plane? Right? If there's nothing wrong with the plane, there's no reason that I'm jumping out. Just throw that out there for you. National Tell a Joke Day. Okay. Well, we're going to talk politics in a minute, so that might be a joke. And, you probably realize this, but today's National Rum Day. Now, when I was doing some research for our broadcast this morning, I didn't know, some of the history of National Rum Day. You know that there was actually a law called the tax. There was a Sugar Act of 1764. And, it was basically a tax from the British on the American colonies. And they say rum was at the start, even back then, alcohol started fights. And they say it was instrumental in the unrest that finally became the American Revolution. Now, let's see, 1764, 1776. That must have been one heck of a hangover. I'm just throwing that out there. Today's National Rum Day. Let's take a look and see what the markets are doing. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 28 points right now. The S&P 500 down 4. NASDAQ down 68. Oil off 23 cents a barrel. 10-year Treasury 4.22. That's up a bit this morning. We're going to be careful of that one because if we get to 4.25, there might be another big run on higher interest rates. We're going to watch all of that. And obviously, we are watching gasoline prices because we have to watch them. It's the administration's attack on oil, and we're checking out some of these things. Could you imagine? I'm just going to throw this out there. And I have a friend of mine I have two friends actually. One of them left Hawaii the Monday before the big fires. One of them arrived the morning of the fires. Could you imagine today, now that the power grid is gone in Maui, that what it would be if we had only electric cars? Just throwing that out there. It's going to be a long time before they've got power back on the island there. Just throw that out there. Here in California, though, we're paying $5.17 a gallon for gasoline. $5.17. Cap and Trade has got them in Washington up to $5.04. Josh, you got it made though. You're still at $4.42. I guess compared to $5.17, that sounds $4.42 is not too bad. But Jody over there in Arizona is at $4.18, and Brittany's at $4.03, and our tremendous underwriter Lori, $3.43 a gallon of gasoline. $3.43 a gallon. Boy, wouldn't it be nice to go back to those days? But it might require, I'm going to say it, because what's the big news of the day right now? Obviously, another attack on Trump. Another court case, another indictment. Now, could you imagine? I'm just going to throw this out there. I think with the zealot in Atlanta, she's got no chance. I mean, she'll be out of office well before this even goes to trial. Could you imagine the circus that she wants to put on in Atlanta? And I'm not an attorney. I watch one on TV. Don't play one. I watch them. But could you imagine what is going to be the courtroom that they're going to use with 19 defendants all being tried at the same time? Now, they might have to go and the Mercedes-Benz arena or stadium that they have there? That might be what they have to do. But could you imagine 19 defendants? That means you're going to probably have 40 or 50 attorneys. Every one of them gets to ask their own set of questions. Every one of them is going to be doing their own depositions. And all of this, now Trump, he's got you and I making donations, or some people making donations to his campaign. So that's covering his legal fees. How'd you like to be a citizen of Atlanta knowing that's where your tax dollars are going? To go on this witch hunt that's not going to have any effect on anything and might even get thrown out if it ever gets to the Supreme Court. And, I heard one judge or attorney yesterday say that actually this is basically the exact same case that's being brought in other jurisdictions in the federal court. And again, I'm not an attorney, but does a state court, a local court, have a jurisdiction that can go and do the same things that a federal court can do? My understanding is the federal court takes precedent, but I'm just throwing that out there for you. So as we get these zealots out there, it's fascinating. And I'm a big believer that I believe that the United States Supreme Court abdicated their responsibilities during this whole scenario back in 2020. Do I believe that there was a stolen election? I don't know. There's no evidence for it that I've seen. The only piece of evidence that I have seen, and yes, we are in the state of confusion, and we are, in California here. The one thing that I have seen is, if I remember my days of government class, and it was many, many decades ago, it says that the state legislatures have the determination of how the states are going to conduct their elections. Well, last I looked, the governors are not part of the state legislature. So when a governor comes out and says, we're going to change the rules, be it a pandemic or anything else, it's got to go back through the state legislatures. Why didn't the Supreme Court assert that when the case got to them? I don't know, but I find it fascinating, all these things. And we're going to get to watch this, and it's going to affect you because it's your dollars that are going to all of this. It's your dollars, it's going to be chaos for the next several years. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, is there a season for divorce? We're going to talk about it. Is equity a game changer for homeowners looking to sell? We'll talk about that. You can reach me anytime. Our off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few. Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You just need to make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, if you need cash out of your property quickly, yes, it's going to cost you, but Geneva's got private money available. If there's a lot of equity, private money might be the solution, and I've helped several families. We had a judge one time said that they needed to get a loan within about 10 days. And maybe we'll talk about that later, but private money costs the family, but it can be done. And every day at this time, OBMMI, they provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates with consumers across 42% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. They do not tell us APR, points paid, points received. They only report locked rates. And unfortunately, they were ugly yesterday. Daily, the 30-year conforming up 7.158, jumbo up 7.494, 30-year FHA up 7.007, USDA 30 years up 7.049, and the best loan on the market, it's the 30-year VA loan, 6.866. And if you want to get our market commentary, every morning we send it out, rsrmarketminute.com, rsrmarketminute.com. One or two pages that just gives you an idea of what's going on in the marketplace. Let's take a look at today. That was yesterday's news. Today, up the 10-year Treasury's up 4.229, S&P 500 down 3.45. Mortgage-backed securities are down 8 basis points, which means interest rates are up ever so slightly. Why? Well, housing starts and permits is the big news of the day. Overall, supply is not keeping up with demand. Even though supply has been increasing, housing starts rose by almost 4% in July to a 1.452 million unit annualized pace, which was slightly below estimates. There was a revision lower to June, which made the increase in July appear larger. Without it, starts were only up 1%. Year-over-year starts are now higher by 6%. Single-family starts, most important, rose 6.7% last month at a 983,000 unit pace. But again, there was a revision to the previous month. Single-family starts are actually lower than the originally reported number by 1.4%. Year over year, single-family starts are now up 9.5%. Housing permits, which is really the future supply, flat last month at 1.442 million unit annualized pace, down 13% from last year. Single family were up 0.6% last month, up 1.3% year over year. We're still running short. We need 1.5 million units just to keep up with household formation. So we're not there. What does that mean, though? Why is that important? Well, without the supply and continued demand for housing, prices are stable or rising. That's the bottom line there. That's the Mortgage Minute brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Speaking of household formations, let's chat with Stephen Coletti. He is an attorney. We are not giving anybody legal advice, or he's not. I can't. I'm not a lawyer. But he's not giving legal advice. We're here to educate this morning. We're just going to have a chat. We're going to let you eavesdrop on Steve and I chatting. And if you want legal advice, give me a call at 800-306-1990. I still won't give you it, but I'll give you Stephen's phone number. Good morning, Stephen. How are you today?
I'm great, Ron. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Doing wonderful. So divorce season. Well, I guess we can go back to household formation. I guess when there's a divorce, there may or may not be another formation because you're going from one household to two households. So is there a season for this? Is divorce? I used to think that I heard a lot from attorneys that, after the holidays, that's when people started getting divorced. Yesterday, I heard from an attorney It's school time. Is there any real season?
Well, it's kind of one and the same if you think about it. Those things happen when you've got less family stress on your hands and more time to plan and get your ducks in a row. So you're not doing that around the holidays generally. You're going to do that right after the holidays. You're not doing that during the summer usually when you've got the kids around, or maybe they're at camp a little here, a little there. So sure, it tends to happen during the school year because that's when people have at least a little more time to get things together.
So on the broadcasts over the last 13 years that we've been doing this, we've talked about, I believe I understand, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. There's basically 3 different processes. You've got the mediated, which is when people realize that they got married for a reason. They liked each other at one point in time, and now they can get out of this in a amicable way, so to speak. You got collaborative and you've got litigated. Is there more ways than that to go through this process?
Well, yeah, usually there's some combination of those things. So, for example, what I typically do is either mediation, which, if successful, keeps you out of court entirely. And then you're just submitting your paperwork to the court, and hopefully you're saving the drama that would otherwise fall on your family or your kids. Sometimes mediation falls apart because you get a certain way down the path and the negotiations fall apart, and then you're talking about another way to resolve your case. Collaborative is, there's 2 teams that are working, one on your side, one on the other side. The goal is still to stay out of court, but you're probably talking about a bigger team. And if that falls apart, then you got to hire a new team if you're going to go to court. And then litigation, of course, is sure, you may be trying to settle your case, but sometimes that takes the man or the woman in the black robe to make a couple of decisions before you see the writing on the wall and you get your act together to resolve the rest of your case. If you can't, that's what the court system's there for. You'll have a trial and you'll have a resolution.
So, again, most of us don't see a whole lot of these things. We hear about the most biggest time we hear about divorce is usually these big celebrities getting divorced or something along those lines. We don't really see the Mr. and Mrs. Smith down the street from Main Street America going through this process. And most of us have never gone through law school. We don't know what you know, but we see headlines and issues like that. So I'm going to throw this at you and see, the biggest headline right now has obviously been that a bunch of attorneys got together and came up with a resolution in the Hunter Biden case. They go to court and the judge starts asking questions, and all of a sudden everything's blown up and nothing happens. Does that the same way it would work in a divorce case where the attorneys might get together and agree on everything and go to court and the judge says, no, we're not going to do that?
Pretty typically not. Almost always, if the parties have agreed and it's their lives, the court's going to sign off on it. There are cases where the court is going to look behind it. Generally in family law, that's going to mean something that is considered to either be grossly inequitable, meaning if you want to, for guilt reasons or to save money or what have you, if you and your ex-spouse decide that she's going to get a little bit more or you're going to get a little bit more, the court doesn't really care. But if it looks like either third parties might be defrauded, where one party is getting almost all of the assets in order for the other party to escape some liability, yeah, you're going to get a family law judge that's going to look behind that and say, what's going on here? Same possibly with third-party creditors or, for example, to avoid bankruptcy. You will have a judge take a look at that and say, I've got some questions here. Now, that's aside from any procedural defects in the paperwork where one of the attorneys or a paralegal doesn't quite get all their ducks in a row in terms of what the court requires. That's different. But in the substantive terms, you should expect that a court is going to look at this at least. You should also expect that they're going to let you more or less do what you want. But if there's an iffy case, you better have some answers, and you may have to actually show up and explain it to a judge.
So my understanding that the next step that I would throw out is that if you do litigate, the judge has basically got the law is pretty much the basement, so to speak, of the whole process. If we want to, and I think you just said it, if we want to go above and beyond what the basement is, as long as we're not breaking the law, we can do pretty much what we want to do. Is that a fair assumption?
More or less. I mean, most attorneys, their job is to initially educate their clients about what their rights are. And then once you know your rights, if you want to come up with something different or get creative, a lot of times I call it horse trading. So this idea in popular culture that in a divorce case, you've got to split everything up. Everything has to be split in half. Sure, that's more or less what a court must do if forced to make those decisions. But if you're coming up with your own agreement, you can horse trade. Uh, we've all seen a husband takes the house and the wife takes the business or a bunch of the retirement accounts. Essentially, you put together a community property balance sheet and you come up with values, either agreed upon values or known values, and you can create an essentially equitable resolution to your case. And the court's going to let you do that as long as it looks more or less like it's all on the up and up.
Interesting. When we come back, I want to chat with you a little bit about, the thing that I worry about most when I talk about, and I've never gone through divorce, thankfully. I'm 36 years into a life sentence. So, but the one that concerns me the most and what we've looked to protect and educate on since 2010 on Ron Siegel Radio is protecting the kids. So I want to chat with you about that portion of it when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate current events and the financial markets. Equity is a game changer for homeowners looking to sell. We'll talk about that as well. You can reach me anytime. Off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few. Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Great app, free to you. Doesn't cost you anything, but you can monitor your credit scores, your assets, your bank accounts, the value of your real estate, and oh yeah, about 97% of the properties across the country are listed that are available for sale are right there, rsrmoney.com. Equity is a game changer for homeowners looking to sell. If you're a homeowner, you might be torn on whether or not to sell your house right now. Maybe that's because you don't want to take on a higher mortgage rate or your next home, for your next home. If that's your biggest hurdle, understanding your equity may be exactly what you need to help you feel more comfortable making your move. What equity is and how it works. Equity is the current value of your home minus what you owe on the loan. And recently, that equity has been growing far faster than you may expect. Over the last few years, home prices rose dramatically, and that gave your equity a big boost very quickly. While the market has stabilized started to normalize, I should say, while the market has started to normalize, there's still an imbalance between the number of homes available for sale and the number of buyers looking to make a purchase. And that's because homes are in such high demand that prices are back on the rise today. Rob Barber, CEO of Adam, a property data provider, explains, quote, equity levels were high even during the recent downturn, and now they're going back up and better than ever, unquote. Home equity benefits you in today's market with today's affordability challenges. That equity can be a game changer when you move. Here's why. Based on data from Adam and the census, nearly 2/3 of homeowners have either paid off their mortgages or have at least 50% equity. If you're watching us on RonSiegelRadio.tv, any of our socials, or the ABC News and Talk AM 1490 video feed, you're seeing a chart of how much equity Americans are sitting on right now. That means roughly 70% have a tremendous amount of equity right now. Once you sell your house, you can use your equity to help your next purchase. It could be some, if not all, of what you'll need for your next down payment. It may even be enough to allow you to purchase a considerably larger down payment on your next home so you don't have to finance quite as much. And if you've been in your current house for years, you may have even built up enough equity to pay all cash. If that's true for you, you'd be able to avoid borrowing altogether so you won't have to worry about today's mortgage rates. You might even be able to take some of your equity, put a nice down payment on a new property, pay off all of your credit card debt, unsecured debt, car debt. We'll talk about student loan debt because you know that there's a lot of programs from the federal government to help with that, and still cut down your monthly expenses. That's the big item right there. The 3% mortgage is killing people, and most people don't even understand that. If you want to understand it better, RSR3PCT.com, RSR3PCT.com. Bottom line, if you're looking to make a move and you've gained a lot of equity, give us a call, 800-306-1990. I know some of you realized or saw that home values dropped the last half of last year. Are you aware that the increase at the first half of last year was so dramatic that even with the drop in the last half of the year, real estate values were up for the year as a whole? And now 5 of the 6 different sources that many of us follow are showing that real estate values are at all-time highs. So just throw that out there for you. That's a real-time real estate segment. Again, brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Continue our conversation. We are chatting this morning with attorney Stephen Colletti. Not giving legal advice. Stephen and I are just having a chat. You get to listen in, and hopefully you'll find some value. If you want legal advice, give me a call at 800-306-1990. I still won't give you legal advice, but I'll give you Stephen's number so you can get legal advice. And we're chatting about family law this morning. And if you missed the last segment, shame on you, but you can get it on our social channels. We chatted about different types of divorces. There's not just the one where you go in and try and annihilate the other person. There are other ways of doing this. Maybe there's probably a reason you got married in the first place. So maybe you can get out of the whole situation as amicably, and you got to talk to a great attorney. But here's the issue that I want to chat about in this segment is going through this whole process, Stephen. Who looks out for the kids?
Well, ideally, the parties are, right? I mean, everybody thinks that they know what's best for their own kids. So first and foremost, it's the parties. And those parties may have very different opinions about the parenting style or what looking out for the best interests of the kids are. But of course, secondarily, you've got at least here in Los Angeles, the Department of Child and Family Services that's looking out for kids if there's reports of abuse. You've got mandated reporters at school. You've got mandated reporters when kids are in therapy, maybe dealing with some of the fallout from the divorce. A lot of times, parents decide it's a good idea to have their kids with a sounding board, a place of safety where they can talk about their feelings that they're going through. And then, of course, ultimately, the court system. And that doesn't just mean the judges, although that's the most obvious and hands-on approach is going to be the judges that are asked to step in by one of the parties. But also that system includes child custody evaluators, where they're social workers or psychologists that are tasked by the court to investigate the best interests of the kids and interview teachers and coaches and watch the interactions between the kids and the parties. And then they can report back to the court about their recommendations for the court to possibly implement if the court sees fit. So there's a pretty incredible safety net out there to protect kids. But you may have noticed a theme there, and that is someone's got to bring it to someone's attention. So if the parties are going to handle their situations themselves, that's fine. And parental rights is still the number one priority in this state, in this country. So we've got that as first and foremost. But if outsiders see that there are problems, then they can step in and at least ask for some attention to be paid by our support systems.
So, I've never got into this in all the years I've been chatting with family lawyers on the show. So if I'm as a third party see something that looks questionable, where would I go? Who would I be the one to call it? Because I'm not a mandatory reporter, but right. I see A and B, and I see their kids look like they're suffering, and we see so much right now, the suicide rates and all, and the challenges of all the young people. Who would I call?
Well, if you're seeing something, and the example you just described, more than likely a therapist or a school administrator might get involved at that point. If you're talking about kids and self-harm or suicidal thoughts or etc. But I had a recent case where someone called me and said, "Hey, I was putting my kid in the car at the Costco parking lot, and apparently someone didn't like the way I was putting my kid in the car, and I get a visit from the Department of Child and Family Services." Some people call it CPS, Child Protective Services, because a third party didn't like the way I was disciplining my child. Sure, that can happen. You've got to be aware of your surroundings, and if you're not at home, your style of discipline is subject to other people making a decision that can affect your life. Now, that is a rare case. That hardly ever happens, but it does. I will tell you, I have found the Child Protective Services structure in Southern California to be pretty well established. They have good people working for them, despite some headlines. You always hear about the bad things, of course, and there's always room for improvement, no doubt. But by and large, the system does work. And so there'll be an investigation and there'll be a determination that this was either a one-off or this was not neglect or abuse. It's still a big hassle. You're still under the microscope, and that's no fun. So you do need to be a little bit careful. But that's where you would go, Ron, is if you see something, say something, and that is generally what the system wants you to do, is protect kids first. When in doubt, and it probably needs to be a reasonable doubt, and there are a lot of crazies out there. But if you've got a reasonable doubt, then you can call 911. You can call the Department of Child and Family Services. Those numbers are easy to Google, and those people make themselves very available.
That's great information. I like and I find it interesting that we have to deal obviously nowadays with a changing society as well. I mean, I was my dad. Obviously I'm old. My dad was raised with a strong hand. I thought that was wise when I finally got to be a parent. I raised my kids with a strong hand, and nowadays you wonder, is that going to be scrutinized more? And worked for centuries, but the society's changing, and sometimes you got to wonder, is it for the better or not? But a lot of question marks out there right now. We're going to continue our conversation with Stephen Colletti when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few. Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Better Outcomes segment brought to you by mydymworkbook.com, mydymworkbook.com. So I've talked to you about many times about the fact that, during the pandemic, I did go and get certified as a certified divorce lending professional. And one of the things we find out during that process is you better listen to the judge. And, and it just doesn't matter just because I got that certification. I think it's probably a good idea anytime. You better listen to the judge, except for there's one in Anaheim Hills. Don't listen to him. He's got his own problems right now. But I'll just share a quick story with you about a gentleman that decided he wasn't going to listen to the judge. So husband, wife getting divorced. They have a rental property that's free and clear. That means they own nothing on the property. And as part of the process, he was supposed to be refinancing the property and giving the soon-to-be ex-spouse half those proceeds. That was what the judge ordered. Well, they go in after 6 months and judge asks for an update. He hadn't done anything. Judges don't like to be ignored. Just throwing that out there. I'm not an attorney, but ignoring a judge is generally not going to work out well. Well, this judge said, you've got 2 weeks to get her half the money, or I, being the judge, I'm going to award her the entire property free and clear. Now, whether that works or not, I don't know. I'm not an attorney, but I get a call from the attorneys and they say, how quickly can you get a loan done? Well, that's not the norm, so it's going to cost you. And the attorney said, well, more or less than 100%. And I said, it'll be less, but there was private money solution. Private money means you have to follow the law, but the guidelines are not quite the same, especially when it's an investment property. And we're able to get them 50% of their money within about a week. So make sure that you're listening to the judge. If you want information on this, give me a call at 800-306-1990. If you're going through divorce, this workbook is a great workbook for you. MyDYMWorkbook.com, MyDYMWorkbook.com. It is for those of us that have gone through this process and understand the intersection of law and real estate and finance. Not that we're lawyers, not giving legal advice, but we do understand a little bit of this, and we kind of supplement and help from the lending standpoint. Continue our conversation. Stephen Kawaletti. Did I get it right that time, Stephen? I know I've been pronouncing your name wrong. Stephen Kawaletti?
Kawelty.
Kawelty, okay. So I'm still wrong. Kawelty.
Everybody gets it wrong. I'm Polish for as far as a lot of people know.
Okay, so at least I can be in line with the rest of the world's getting the. At least I got Stephen correct. So chatting about and Stephen is an attorney and not giving legal advice. So I like to throw that in there every segment in case you're just tuning in. We're getting some education. We're having a little chit chat. So obviously one of the biggest stories we've heard about in this whole family issue has been Blindside. You know, the NFL football player, and apparently he signed a conservatorship, or there was a conservatorship in place of some sort. He thought he was adopted. Is that something that a family lawyer would be helping with, or the family court, or is that somewhere else that they get involved in these things?
Well, it sort of depends on whether it's an adoption or a conservatorship, and that's really at the heart of the Michael Oher matter. Is he's allegedly understood, whether that's reasonable or not, way back when, that he was being adopted, and that would be part of the family court. If in fact it's a conservatorship, that would probably be part of the probate court. Two different court systems that sometimes do interact. And whether or not he had lawyers back then at the kitchen table when the family put the documents down and discussed it with him, I guess that's going to be part of the allegations in the lawsuit and what a court is ultimately asked to remedy. But it's all family related, is I think pretty obvious. But it's the intersection of a lot of different court systems. It could even be the civil court that gets involved if there's a breach of contract alleged or something like that. But I know that Michael is looking to get rid of the conservatorship. The family preliminarily, not under oath and not in court, is saying no problem, we'll dissolve the conservatorship. So if everybody's agreeable and everybody's looking to resolve this, I don't think we would be hearing about it in the press. So we're going to wait and see.
Be fascinating. Again, it's all looking out for the kids, so it's a interesting portion of it. So where do you find the big issues where people are? I guess my question really would be, where would you, if somebody decide right now they're sitting and listening to us and they're contemplating divorce, what is their first steps that they need to be doing?
Well, there's a couple of first steps that are, if you will, either sort of emergency or triaging things that you want to get done really before anything else. And one is securing documents, probably mostly financial or having to do with the house, if there's a house or investment property. And that could include making sure that you've got copies of the escrow package from way back when, or the final closing statement for that purchase. Maybe it means historical documents related to your finances, particularly if you came into the marriage with some assets. Ideally, you'll want to have copies of those date of marriage statements. And really, it's collecting the documents. The subtext there is making sure they don't walk away. Because sometimes what I see is one of the parties starts thinking about it before the other party, and suddenly the filing cabinet is empty, or that storage box in the attic is gone, and you don't necessarily know it. It's best not to play games with those things. So making copies is a good idea in case they walk away, but don't take them. Or if you're going to take them, make sure you have them, and you're going to be tasked by the court or by the disclosure laws to actually provide them to the other side. Hiding them, stealing them may sound like an interesting short-term goal. I'm telling you, you're going to pay for it. So don't do it. And the other thing is, get your present finances, knowledge about your present finances all together. So your current bank statements, credit card statements, investment statements, the title to the car, just make sure you have those close at hand, because practically before you do anything else, unless it's health and safety related to yourself or the kids, you're going to have to do a full and complete financial disclosure. So will the other side. That includes copies of statements for all assets and debts. And if you've got that stuff together, even before you call an attorney, and you don't necessarily have to do that, but if you have all of that together right from the get-go, then you're going to be miles ahead in terms of the work, and you're going to save a small fortune in your attorney or the paralegal not having to do that all for you.
I'm going to go a little dark here with you, Stephen. When I've gone to various and had conversations, and again, I'm 36 years into a life sentence, so I'm not going to a family lawyer for my own benefit. They all of the family law offices look like they're more secure than a bank. Why is that? I mean, why is there a lot of violence in this kind of law?
I mean, there certainly can be, but generally no. In my office, we generally keep the door locked unless we know someone's coming, because let's face it, people are not always at their best when they're going through a divorce. Their family, for good or ill, is being torn apart, and they find themselves in an emotionally vulnerable, or in some cases, emotionally aggressive state, depending on what's happened in the case. Maybe someone feels that they weren't heard by a judge, and they want to take it out on somebody. But that's really, Ron, that's really worst case scenario. The vast, vast, vast majority of people don't face those kinds of things, or at least are not willing to take the law into their own hands. But it's about emotions in family law, and not so much just about money like in other court cases. Lots of people, if you're going to court, you've got money that you're trying to not have taken away from you, but maybe you've got other money, or you can make money back. You only have one family, at least right now, while you're going through this process, and that hits hard for a lot of people.
So the bottom line here is take a step back, take a deep breath, realize that some of these violent issues can cause a lot more long-term detrimental effects on your family, your life. Money is a lot, but it's not everything. And just
That's
remember
right.
that whole concept. Take a deep breath. And if you are the one that's feeling you're dealing with somebody who's being more aggressive, and you're listening to us, make sure you get in touch with law enforcement. Don't try and take it in your own hands. make sure that you call the authorities, and they're trained for this. And just be careful is the bottom line.
Ron, I'll add that the restraining order system out there is very robust, and they take these things very seriously. So if you're in doubt, talk to law enforcement, even have a consult with a family law attorney. Is this abuse? What are my options here? The court system acts very, very quickly to protect victims and children. So
tell us real quick, what is our best method of starting? Is it a consultation with yourself, or how do you get started? We only got about a minute, but
sure. Most attorneys will either offer a free or a reduced rate consultation, half an hour or an hour. That way you get some idea of where the issues are in your case, maybe some things you hadn't thought about. You'll get a little bit of education about how the process works. And then you can also test fit the chemistry with the attorney, whether or not that's a good fit for you. You can shop around, but generally, call the attorney's office, see about setting up a consultation, and do some shopping around so that you get a good fit and you're seeing eye to eye. The attorney is there to be as objective as possible. So consider whether you want that pit bull, which, the judges know the pit bulls. So keep that in mind and get yourself educated.
Appreciate it. If you want to get more information on this, if you want to meet Stephen Coelty, give me a call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Be happy to put you in touch. And as always, I ask, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. A big thanks to Josh and Sean who are engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.